Michigan's going to Germany in 2026, reportedly. I guess they admit that they are having big discussions to take their game against Western Michigan to start the 2026 season to Germany. And there was a lot of consternation when that news was announced. There were a lot of folks that questioned, why in the hell are two schools that are 100 miles apart traveling 4,000 miles to go play a game overseas when Michigan could schedule virtually anybody and agree to go play them in Germany? Why is Michigan playing a game in Germany to begin with? There are a lot of question marks regarding this game moving to Europe. And I think I have maybe some ideas on just why and how this happened. The first thing is that this is not Michigan's kind of first foray into Germany, right? They have, whether it's been their basketball teams, their hockey teams, their marching band, have been to Germany and Austria several times throughout the last couple of years. Now, not in a, hey, we should play some games here capacity, but in a friendship, fellowship, let's make some inroads in those countries. And I think it makes sense because, and this is the same reason that the NFL is playing games in Germany and Brazil and the United Kingdom and Mexico, et cetera, is at some point you get the market tapped out and you have to grow if you're going to keep growing for growth's sake, which I don't ever think is good, but that's neither here nor there. The whole point is that Michigan has made as many Michigan fans as conceivably they're going to make in the United States. Now, those Michigan fans can procreate now when a man loves a woman, and they can make more Michigan fans, but the market's pretty well tapped out. Furthermore, there are 16 million Germans under the age of 20 years old. The chance that even 1% of them want to go to the United States to go to college, and they're familiar with the University of Michigan, gives the Wolverines an upper hand. So I don't think it's necessarily as whacked out of an idea as a lot of other people do. And I think you're going to see more of this in college football, to be frank. I think there are going to be schools that play games in Japan, and there are going to be schools that play games in Germany. If Farmageddon can be moved to Dublin, Ireland to start the 2025 season, which is going to happen in like a month, I don't think it's outlandish to think that other games could be moved all around the globe. I don't think that it is disingenuous for Michigan to say, by playing this game in Germany, we're going to give a world-class experience to our student athletes. And I think that that's true. I don't know how it isn't true. They're not going to show up on Friday, play the game on Saturday, and fly home. There's going to be a longer period than that, and they're going to go do some sightseeing. They're going to do some stuff that you're not going to get to do potentially at other schools. And as I mentioned on the podcast last week, everything is a battle to be won in college football, whether it is recruiting, whether it's down to social media graphics. Everybody thinks that they need to have the best of the best of the best. And having a trip where you take your football team to Germany is inherently a recruiting advantage. If the options are you can play at the Big House against Western Michigan, or we're going to take your ass to Germany on a week-long trip, and then you're going to play Western Michigan in Frankfurt, that's a lot cooler sounding trip. Or if you're recruiting against another school, and that school's non-conference games are going to be in Norman, Oklahoma, and Blacksburg, Virginia, while our non-conference game's going to be in Germany, it's a nice thing to have in your back pocket. So I can't fault Michigan for doing that. Furthermore, I wouldn't be shocked if there isn't maybe a little bit of help from the state of Michigan to give the University of Michigan to make sure that Western Michigan, another state school in the mitten, like, hey, it also benefits Western Michigan to take that game. It benefits the state of Michigan for the University of Michigan to play that game in Germany. So it's a recruiting advantage. It's a cool experience to give to your students, your fans, your boosters, etc. And so while is it the perfect scenario when you're playing a team from 100 miles away that should conceivably be able to get on a bus, frankly, the day of, now obviously that's not going to happen, but it could be possible if they wanted it to be. Is it the best case scenario to take that game 4,000 miles away and put everybody on 9-hour flights? No, not especially. But should Michigan care whether that's the best thing for Western Michigan? No, they shouldn't. Because you know what's the best thing for Western Michigan? Probably not playing Michigan. So if you're going to do it, you might as well do it in this cool environment. Now, while I think that you can understand somebody's thought process, perspective, etc., that doesn't mean you agree with the outcome that they decide. I don't have to sit here and like that Michigan is going to take a game away from their fans, away from their home stadium, 4,000 miles away. Because the one thing, and I guess it doesn't necessarily matter, I think, because this isn't a premier non-conference game, right? Like, we're not going to be sitting around going like, holy hell, Michigan's playing Western Michigan next year. I can't wait for that. That's just not going to happen. Nobody's sitting around thinking that. But I've mentioned this before. I don't want college football to be like college basketball, where the premier non-conference games happen away from home arenas, home gyms. I want, and this was a really common response when it was announced that Michigan was going to play in Germany, was why not their game against Oklahoma? Why not another big-time future non-conference game? Why is it the game against Western Michigan? And I think that that's a fair point, so to speak, of, hey, I'd love to see Michigan play Texas in Germany. I'd love to see Michigan play Notre Dame in Germany. I'd love to see Michigan play Oregon in Germany. Why is it Western Michigan and not these other big-time games? I'd rather see Oklahoma at Michigan in Ann Arbor. I'd rather see Notre Dame in Ann Arbor. I'd rather see Michigan versus Texas in Austin, in Ann Arbor, rather than the alternative. So I think it's almost somewhat of a careful what you wish for type situation, because if you say, well, why are they playing this nobody school in Germany when they could be playing this big time game? Well, like, hold on a second. First of all, it then doesn't become an exclusive recruiting advantage for Michigan. But then also, I want to see that game happen in an electric atmosphere. I want to see that game happen where somebody's got to go into somebody else's stadium and win in a difficult environment, rather than this game's going to start at 10 a.m. Eastern time because it's happening in Germany. So I understand why Michigan's doing what they're doing. I understand why they chose Western Michigan as their opponent. Do I think it's great? No, not necessarily. But if you are in the business of creating recruiting advantages, creating unique experiences for your students, your student athletes, etc., and creating buzz, because you know what? Nobody was going to talk about Western Michigan at Michigan if that game was played in Ann Arbor in August or September 2026. It just wasn't going to move the needle. Nobody gave a damn that a Big Ten school is going to play host to a MAC school. And now, a few days later, it's still being talked about. It's still being bandied about. And guess what? When it's going to be game time, there's going to be discussions about the game happening in Germany. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And the game is attention and notoriety. By playing in Germany, Michigan is establishing both of those things. And while I'd like to hate it, while I'd like to sit here and bitch about it, complain about it, tell you how stupid it is, I can't do anything other than say, yeah, I get it. Makes a lot of sense, truthfully. Want to know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you want to see your team play overseas? Do you think Michigan's dumb for taking a game that's a home game of their own and moving it 4,000 miles away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.